Hey guys, what's up? Darcy here at Six Strings Nine Lives. Today I'm going to do a follow-up to a video I did this past summer, and that title was my top 10 thrash metal bands and my favorite album from each. But this time we're going to do my top 10 traditional metal bands and my favorite album from each. It was suggested in the comments that I do this or continue this, and I will. I will also probably do I don't know if it'll be top 10s, but I might do a combined of 5 hard rock, 5 glam, or 5 power metal, 5 death metal, something like that. But we will continue on. These type of videos I feel are good for newer viewers, and if you are newer to the channel, welcome. You guys kind of get the condensed version of some of the bands that I feature on my channel and that I love and that I talk about. And yeah, and it's just my top 10. Feel free to put your top 10 in the comments. I would say my top 5 is absolutely solid, and I will go from 1 till 10 in this video. 6 through 10 on my list. They could be a little bit interchangeable, and there's many bands that just didn't make the cut. There's many number 11s, put it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up my favorite album from each of these bands, and then I'm going to throw something else in there, related to each of these bands, whether it be, a key live album or something special, whatever. So let's start off with, and if you're a longtime viewer, you're going to be able to guess along with this, and that's cool too. I always try to keep track as much as I can of bands that you guys love and people that comment often, which I totally appreciate. Let's start off with my favorite band. Overall, this is, if you say pick one favorite band, this is the one, and this is my favorite album from them. This is Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith. You know about this. If you're watching a metal channel, you probably have known Priest for years. So this was not quite my intro, but this was my first newly released Judas Priest album. Kind of got into Priest a little bit in 1982, and then it just kind of grew into this. And this, though, was my first major concert that I went to in 1984. Saw Judas Priest on the Defenders of the Faith tour with Great White opening. I've told that story many a time, but so there is my number 1 Priest album. And what I thought I'd throw in today is one thing that kind of bugs me about Priest is they really don't acknowledge the Ripper years, and I'm hoping one day they see the error of their ways and start reissuing some of these things properly. But today I'm going to show you kind of a live album that I really enjoy, and that is Live in London. So this is 2003, so this would be really close to the time when Rob Halford came back. I think he came back into the band in 2004. But if you've never heard this one, this is, I think, out of the 2 Ripper live albums, this one's my favorite. The other one, what was it called? Metal Meltdown or whatever. It was kind of, they were kind of down-tuned on their guitars and stuff, but this is just back to that classic sound. There is 2 tracks on here from Jugulator and 3 tracks from Demolition. So if you've never heard some of this live stuff with Ripper, he does a great job. I've always said he did a great job, and especially on these Priest classics like Metal Gods and Green Manalishi. The list goes on, but this is a big set list too. I think there's like 18 to 20 tracks on this one. So yeah, just thought I'd mention that one. Let me know if you are in the same boat as I am, wishing some of this Ripper stuff would come out. All right, coming in at number 2, Iron Maiden. Just did a ranking on an updated ranking on Iron Maiden. And thank you for all the feedback and the views. And I mean, that's what I'm here for. So thanks again. But let's show you, well, you already know if you've watched that video, Peace of Mind. Let's fire out the old cassette. This is my original cassette of Peace of Mind. Favorite Iron Maiden album. And if you haven't watched the ranking video, go back and you can see what follows after this one. But here, we'll give away one. That is Peace of Mind. And we are going to show you, I'm kind of happy I got these. These are originals, original CDs, not the best live albums from Iron Maiden, but I've always loved this artwork. And when they reissued these, which I'll hold up the first one, let's pull this out. So they did these separate. They were released in what were they? Both released in 93. And I think a few months apart, if I remember correctly. But this one is a real live one. And when they reissued, they combined the words "a real live dead one." And out of the two, this is not my favorite artwork. This next one is. And here is "a real dead one." So this artwork, I just love this Derek Riggs artwork. But to have both of these on separate CDs, I'm pretty happy that I do have them. They're not easy to come by anymore, so I just thought I'd throw those out there. And as far as Iron Maiden live material, I think I will do a ranking of all the Iron Maiden live albums. We'll see when, but I definitely will get that done at some point. Now, coming in at number 3 is number 3 and 4. Oh, they're so close, but I've been a Saxon fan forever. Here's my number 1 Saxon album, 1981's Denim and Leather. You know, just definitely an 80s cover for sure. But here's a band that I followed through the thick, the thin, all 24 studio albums. You know, and just this past, it was January that Hell, Fire, and Damnation was released, and they are still, you know, they're still putting out fantastic material, which that one will definitely feature high on my year-end list, which I do every year. If you're new to the channel, do a top, I don't know, top 10 or 15, one or the other. I don't go too much beyond that. I tend to think I'm forcing it, or it's watered down. So I'm just usually keep it to 10 or 15. But anyways, there's Denim and Leather. Just watch that video over and over on Canada's Much Music back in the day for Denim and Leather, the title track, which is kind of related to this next one I want to show you. But I said earlier in the video, key live albums. If you've somehow missed the boat on this high energy must-have Saxon live album, this is The Eagle Has Landed. So this is material from based on, well, album number 2, 3, and 4. Is there anything on here from? No, there isn't even a track on from the debut here. But this is just a fantastic live Saxon album. Like I said before, high energy, and just those versions of their songs on here, like Motorcycle Man, Princess of the Night, Heavy Metal Thunder, Classic, Wheels of Steel. I wish Denim and Leather was on here. But what I'm saying is these versions are almost better than the studio versions. And in some cases sped up a little bit, like, you know, Live After Death, for example, with Iron Maiden. Those versions are a little speedier than the studio versions, but man, just killer stuff too. So if you haven't spun this in a while, or have never spun it, give this a whirl. The Eagle Has Landed, which came out in 82, and then the 83 was Power and the Glory. So what are we on to here? Like I said, 3 and 4 really tight, but not only is this my number 4, but this actually, the album I'm going to hold up is my favorite metal album of all time. This is number 1, and as if you ask me, hey, what's metal sound like, or whatever, I would just hand you this album and say, hey, go listen to this. So here is Accept, Restless and Wild, my favorite Accept album. Has been for years. Yes, there's great albums like Balls to the Wall, Metal Heart, Russian Roulette. The list goes on, Breaker. But this one, and this is the cover that I first saw in Canada, or this is the North American cover. And over the past few months, what was I going to tell you? Over the past few months, a friend of mine tracked me down this is probably not an original, but it's whatever, doesn't matter. But I always wanted this cover of the Burning Flying V's, which just fantastic, just iconic, iconic album. I'm sure you know it if you know metal, you know Accept, but yeah, Fast as a Shark. I mean, there you go. That sums that up. Love those V's. So there is my number 4 with my favorite Accept album. And what I've thrown this album in the mix a few times. I've asked you guys about it. I've done an Accept album ranking. I think I've ranked, yeah, I think all these albums, or all these bands on this list, I've done ranking videos. So if you do want to track those down, I'm not sure if any of them need to be updated. I think they're good, but I've always asked you about this album. This is 89's Eat the Heat. This one either just gets dumped on, last of the list, or people do like it. And I am in the camp that I do like it. You know, I understand if you're just a Udo Dirkschneider guy, you're probably not going to like David Rees's voice. But at the time they tried something new, Udo went off to do his own thing, which, stay tuned. But you know what? I like this album. It still has that Accept signature guitar of Wolf Hoffman, especially on tracks like Ecstasy, D-Train, Turn the Wheel, Hellhammer. That is just classic Accept with David Rees on vocals. And yeah, so let me know, you know, have you warmed up to this over the years, or is this still in the shit pile? All right, moving on to which I said stay tuned. Big Udo Dirkschneider fan here, which if you've followed the channel, you already know that. So coming in at, so Accept number 4, number 5, UDO, favorite album, still the debut. Tough to beat this one. For all intents and purposes, this was to be the next Accept album after Russian Roulette. So this one came out in 87. Udo left the band probably late 86 or early 87, whatever, and made this album. Got his own band together. That's just killer. I mean, there's, what is there, 18 studio albums from UDO. I mean, they already have more albums than Accept, which I failed to mention too in the beginning of the video. Out of these 10 bands, there's a combined total of 151 studio albums. And I'm only showing you 10. So that is just a small sample of what's out there for these bands. Yeah, a couple of these bands, and we'll get into them soon, there's kind of a key cutoff times for me. I still own all their material, but there's that favorite period, you know what I'm talking about, and one you'll really know here when we get to it. But there is UDO, Animal House, 1987. They had a brand new album, what was it last year, called Touchdown, which Peter Baltes is now the bass player for UDO, which is cool. Peter, one of my favorite guys in Accept, original lineup, favorite bass players. So now this is not quite UDO, but it might as well be. It's a UDO related. This is a live album that came out in 2016. UDO went out on the road as Dirkschneider and did live Back to the Roots. And at the time they said, okay, this is the last time we're going to go out and do exclusively Accept songs, which didn't quite happen. I mean, when you're a promoter and you're bringing in UDO to your, or the UDO band to your venue, you want them to play, you know, Fast as a Shark. You want them to play Balls to the Wall. You'd almost feel cheated if you didn't hear those songs. So they didn't quite stick to the plan. But if you've never listened to this, give this a whirl. There's just so many great, well, you know the great tracks on here. But to hear Udo Dirkschneider doing these with his band, I mean, Starlight, Up to the Limit, Midnight Mover, Breaker, I'm a Rebel, TV War, Wrong is Right, I already said Up to the Limit. Burning ends with the song Burning. Yeah, this is a fantastic live album if you've never heard it. Dirkschneider, Back to the Roots, out in 2016. let's set that one aside and move on. Now, we'll just call this one number 6. Like I said, once we got to 6 to 10, it flip-flop, whatever. But this is pretty cool. I am getting to see this guy and his band finally live here in about a week and a half's time. But here is King Diamond. And again, if you watch my channel, you know I'm a big King Diamond. Even Merciful Fate would hit this list at some point. You won't see it today, but big fan of both bands. But here is King Diamond. Abigail, still my number 1. Oh, and I would say, well, I don't want to give too much away from that ranking, but I mean, Conspiracy is such a close second. That is a deadly album too. But Abigail, so they will be definitely playing probably 2 or 3 tracks from this one when I get to see King Diamond, Overkill, and Night Demon here coming up in the almost end of November here. But there is King Diamond. And what am I going to show you extra of King Diamond? Well, here's an underrated album that came out, I think, was it a year? Yeah, it came a year after Merciful Fate did In the Shadows. And then it was kind of a back and forth affair with New King Diamond, New Merciful Fate, New King Diamond, New Merciful Fate. Sometimes an album from each in the same year, like 96 and 98, you got an album from each of those bands. But I always love this album, and I still continue to want to promote it. This is The Spider's Lullaby. I'll take it out of the jewel case. Now, this is the original cover. I like the updated artwork they did, but I would take a reissue of this, or I don't think it ever came out on vinyl, to be honest with you, in this. Maybe it did like this, but I love this simple cover. It's so creepy, but this is one of those King Diamond albums where it is only half concept. The first half of this, from track 1 to track 6, are all standalone songs, and they are awesome. Yes, the Spider's Lullaby story is great too, but if you want to check out some tracks, some of my favorites on here, the leadoff track, From the Other Side, fantastic. The Poltergeist and Moonlight, just awesome. So if you somehow missed this one, or you dropped off King Diamond after, the Eye album, you definitely need to jump back on the bus and check this one out. And I know I've been saying for years, new King Diamond album, new King Diamond album. So by all accounts of what I've been hearing and reading lately, it looks like a 2025, like later half release for the new album, which is a 2-parter called The Institute. I'm not sure if both parts are called that, but anyways, looking forward to seeing King Diamond. Been a favorite of mine for years. All right, moving along to, what do we call this number? Was that number 6? We'll call this number 7. And the other thing, out of these 10 artists, 9 of them are still going. I should say 8.5, because I'll talk about the half when we get to it. But we lost Ronnie James Dio years back already. Rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio. But here is Holy Diver, still my favorite from Dio, Dio the band. There's many great things from Ronnie James Dio the artist, and maybe one day I'll do a ranking of all his studio albums from the various bands he's been in. But Holy Diver, well, we'll call this 1A for me, and probably last in line, we'll call it 1B. There's just not much separating these two albums. A young Vivian Campbell on guitar, fantastic. And Ronnie's voice, his vocals, continue to be a part of my listening on a yearly basis. You go on I don't know if you're like me, sometimes you'll just go on a binge of certain bands and listen to all their material, which with Dio, there is only 10 studio albums, so it's not a big undertaking. But I mean, this album I could just play on, autopilot anyways. But there is Holy Diver, 1983. And then the kind of the extra, or we won't call it an honorable mention, we'll call it a mention. here's one of the later works that I absolutely enjoy. I think Doug Aldrich was a big part of this one, bringing back that earlier sound, and that is Killing the Dragon. So if you kind of dropped off after the first few Dio albums and you missed this one, go back and check it out. This one's got some killer tracks, including the title track, Along Came a Spider. My favorite track on the album is called Push. Another cool track too would be Throwaway Children. Might be a couple filler songs on here, but overall this is definitely a great Dio album to check out, Killing the Dragon. So that is number 7. What do we got? 3 left. No, number 8 on my traditional metal. And again, these I lumped all these into the traditional metal category. You might change it up a little bit, whether you include stuff like shock rock, whatever, but like I said, it's all metal to me. So number 8 is a band that I got to see 2 times, once on their debut album and once on their 3rd album, and that is Wasp. And what I have, I'll show you here, is my favorite Wasp album. And you probably, if you did watch my Wasp ranking, you'd already know that the debut is my favorite. So this is actually I picked this up. I had some store credit at a shop a few hours away from where I live, and I saw this in a showcase. And I thought, I gotta have this. This is brand new, still sealed. It's not a reissue. I don't think this has ever been reissued on cassette, of a 1984 album, which I'm like, yeah, still original cellophane on it, never been opened. So I'm like, I'm getting that. So I got that one, and I actually picked up their 2nd album too, which was sealed too. Still got all these stickers on here, Price Busters, parental advisory. But there is The Last Command, also new and sealed. So I thought I'd show you both of those. But yeah, what an album. Got to see them on this tour. They actually opened for Crocus on the Blitz tour. And that night, I've said it before, Wasp absolutely, they crushed Crocus, no offense, but just killed it. And touring again on this album right now. They are playing this album in its entirety. Unfortunately, not coming to my immediate area, but if they did, I certainly would go, because there is another band that I will show you that is on that bill. But what are we going to show you from Wasp? I'm going to show you a Key live album that was right in the mix of the second time I saw them. I love the lineup with Piper and Holmes on guitar and Blackie on bass, but I also love this lineup too, with when Blackie goes back to guitar and Johnny Rod comes in on bass, because I've said it before too, Johnny Rod has a great backing vocal voice. He probably sings himself in other bands that he's been in. I know he's been in King Cobra, things like that. But here's Wasp live in the Raw. Must have Wasp. This is not quite a cutoff point for essential Wasp. I believe the Headless Children should be in that category of essential Wasp. The first 4 albums and this fantastic live album. I hope they still got one more album in them. I think Blackie's health is back a lot better than it was with his ailing back. And hopefully they can put out a new studio album. I don't think what was it, 2015 was their last studio album, Golgotha. So long time has passed. So hopefully next year we will see a new Wasp album. But anyways, this is awesome. And check out, there's 2 live tracks on here that weren't on studio albums, and that is The Manimal and Harder Faster. Just love those. Love this album. There you go. That is number 8. Number 9, this is right here. Let's go number 9. Now this is the band where I said half, because I don't know if they are going to continue. There's rumblings of a new album. I forget the title of it too, but let me know in the comments. But this is Savatage. Hall of the Mountain King, longtime Savatage fan. And I said earlier, there's kind of periods where, you know, must have or a cutoff point for me. I do own everything from Savatage, but after Chris Oliva was tragically killed in 1993, you know, I really lost not interest in the band, but it was something was taken away. Obviously, it was Chris. I've said it before. His guitar tone was just ghostly, eerie. I loved it. He was a great lead player, just a huge part of this band with his brother John. But Hall of the Mountain King, man, tough to beat that one. Love this artwork too. What did this come out in? 87, 88, 87, 88. I think, yeah, one or the other. But I think, yeah, 87. Doesn't matter. Anyways, love this album, but I will throw one more kind of, and this is the last album that Chris was on with, and this featured new vocalist Zach Stevens. Now, overall, if I had to make a choice, I like John's voice better for this band, but there's nothing wrong with Zach Stevens. Even some of the albums after Chris's passing are decent albums, but this is the last, kind of an end of an era. But what shines on here is if you could just isolate the guitar playing on here, is what I love. Just kind of kicking back, kind of letting everything else fade out, and just listening to Chris. Just a killer performance on this album. Check out pretty much any track on Edge of Thorns. And that leaves one more band, and I said it was related to the Wasp and the Wasp tour. That is Armored Saint. You know, I know, and some of these might not be your cup of tea, and like I said before, feel free to list in the comments some of your favorites. So we showed Savatage. Now we'll jump over to Armored Saint, and I will show you my number one Armored Saint album. This one has always been my number one. I don't know, well, these guys only put an album out every 5 years, so I don't know how many they got left in them. I think you will see a new one in 2025, but this is Symbol of Salvation. This is before John left for Anthrax for a few albums, and then came back for an album, then went back to Anthrax. But John, just one of the finest voices in metal that you will ever hear, and he still has his chops to this day, and people will tell you that. But Symbol of Salvation, produced by Dave Jordan, who went on to produce Sound of White Noise also, which is definitely a must-have Anthrax album. But Symbol of Salvation, if you are newer to Armored Saint and you need something to check out, this one for sure. And I guess this next one, I could call this definitely an honorable mention and something you need to check out from Armored Saint, and that is Raising Fear. This is when they went back to a four-piece. Yeah, this is still with Dave on guitars, Dave Pritchard, may he rest in peace. Another, just gone too soon, fantastic guitar player, great tone, great leads, all of the above. But Raising Fear, which is the third Armored Saint album, and I know it's probably high up on people's list too, but I still want to get it out there. If you've somehow missed this, the production on here, I think the production is just perfect on here. My favorite track on this album, where is it? It's called Isolation. Love that track, but there's so many great songs on here. Raising Fear, there's even a cover of is it 38 Special? Saturday Night Special. Great job on that. Sorry, and Isolation was my second favorite track. My favorite track on here is Chemical Euphoria. Check that one out. That is just classic Armored Saint. So there is my list of my top favorite, or my top traditional metal bands and my favorite album from each, and then a little bit of extra. And like I said, feel free, throw down in the comments. Even your top 5 would be cool. I read every comment. I try my best to get back to almost everybody. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, which I do appreciate that too. But that's why I do it. See you in the comments. That's always awesome. So hope you enjoyed this one. Until next time, stay heavy.